Okay, welcome everyone to the wasmCloud community call for February 1st. Yes, it is already February. So congrats, we made it through January. Only a couple more months of freezing for the Northern Hemisphere. For the Southern Hemisphere, you look forward to the freezing. Okay, so welcome to this call. We have a bunch of demos today that are going to be pretty exciting. First off, we have testing actors with Dagger. Where's that? Who was doing that one? Was that CJ? Was that Jordan? Was that Jordan? We didn't have an actual name on that.
It can be.
Real quick, Steven actually asked if he could go first today. He's got another appointment. So I don't know if we wouldn't mind doing an audible and let maybe Steven start with his demo. Steven, was that right?
Yeah,
I was swapping it out according to the agenda. So anyway, there's the agenda so people know what I'm following. Steven, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'll just share my screen quick. Oh, I can't share my screen.
You have been inaugurated into the wasmCloud community. Liam, grant the permissions.
Oh, killing me.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, I only have one monitor right now, so just bear with me. It might go into infinite mode. Can you see my screen? Yeah, okay. So something I've been playing with recently is the C4 model a lot. So I came from like a bit of a mechanical background, and I think that in that field they love imparting information with pictures. So I got a little used to that, and I was really excited when a colleague at my last job showed me this model. And I've never
Steven, I'm sorry. I don't think people see your screen.
Oh, sorry. I saw a head shake. Okay, I don't even have the screen share buttons anymore. I'm not sure what happened there. I might have to leave and then jump back in if you want someone else to go for it.
We'll wait. Go ahead if you want to drop and come back on. Do 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 do. I'll stop. I did get a new mic, Connor. How do I sound? Do I sound like Brooks? It's my only goal in life. If I stand real close, do I sound like Brooks?
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me? Let me try that again. Oh, I'm disabled again. Okay, here we go. Better?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay, awesome. So as I was saying, the C4 model is something a colleague shared with me before, and I'm sure many people probably already know about it, but it really excited me, and I can paste the URL into the chat after. But it's basically taking like a UML drawing, which I've never really had experience with, to a level where it can vary the scopes of who you want to speak to. So be able to address different stakeholders in your business better. And there's really four main model perspectives that you can look at. And that would be context, container, component, and code. And it allows you to just dive into your app a little bit better. So the context might focus more on people, the relationships. The container will be looking at the thing like how people interact with maybe your single page application or something. The components will be breaking apart that application into the major components. And then the code will be the elements of those components. So the function calls and interfaces and all that kind of stuff. So this was pretty fun to play with. I just tried to do something really basic that might be evident for wasmCloud, and you can start to dive into context. So maybe at the context level, you have like your application needs certifications, or you have different people relationships that need to be managed, and then you could dive in. So a user is interacting with a wasmCloud application. I can dive in a little bit, look at how that application comes together. So a user might be interacting with a client, and then how that client gets through and gets all the information it needs. And then you could jump in a little bit more and look at it at a component level. Now, I'm fairly new to the C4 model, so I've been tinkering with this a little bit. There's some things here that are not perfect, but it allows you to see the major parts of the single, like the wasmCloud application. And how maybe the calls are happening. So here it might be like WASM bus RPC that should be shown most. I put interfaces here, but when I was doing some more research after, I think they were supposed to be in the code section, so don't mind that. Then when you can jump into the code, you can see, you start to get an even deeper picture of how the application looks. And you're not tied to a single, like 4 perspectives. You can create as many perspectives as you want. But I personally think that one of the best ways to impart documentation or information is through images, just because they're language agnostic and they're pretty easy to understand if they're done well. All of this was created with a YAML-like syntax for the tool that I was using. So this is what that YAML might look like. You kind of specify the components, you give them children, and then you build relationships out of them at the bottom. So you can see like from this element to that element, and you can build out this application. And what was really exciting for me with this tool was that it can export to HTML. So my hope after this is to be able to tinker a little bit with embedding this in maybe some documentation. I know Markdown you can do inline HTML. So my hope was that I could maybe host this type of HTML document on like a static web server, and then be able to do like an inline iframe in my docs, and maybe someone would be able to interact with it that way. But this is still very new to me. I just was very excited about it and thought I would share. It was created by someone named, the model itself was created by someone named Simon Brown. And yeah, hopefully if people like the UML model, you might see this as even better. I've done a little research in that, and I heard there's 2 camps, people that hate UML and people that love it. So hopefully this is a next iteration on that. And that's pretty much all I had to go on this. If there's any questions, just let me know. Or if you want the HTML or the YAML, I can always send it over.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen.
No problem.
Okay, and the next up we have a demo from Jordan, who is going to demo testing some actors with Dagger. So let him jump in.
Hi, Internet. Jordan here. I can't share my screen, Taylor.
I tried to tell Liam to add you, but he did not. So
I had outsourced all this to Brooks. This is why, All right.
All right. Let's see. Shift, click, share. Can you see him?
Looking good.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. So in good fashion of forcing as much Go into wasmCloud as possible, and Stuart showed us this way back when it was like just announced on Twitter. I play with Dagger because recently there was some talk in Slack about like testing actors, and it was a good point. I didn't really know how to do it. Unit test, not what I'm going to be getting into. I'm more like the end-to-end and integration test topic right now. I'm also working on a way to like mock the lattice, which I'll use for unit test eventually. So here's Dagger over here. It's if you don't know what it is, it's essentially allows you to take your CI/CD pipelines and run them identically locally as you would in GitHub Actions, as you would anywhere, which I found really cool because one of my biggest pain points I have is when I'm testing code at work. I test it on my laptop, and it's a different test structure than it is in the CI, and it's a different test structure than it is in GitHub, and it creates all kind of confusion. So looking at the terminal here, here's kind of what I've done. The module that I'm testing is just wash new, echo actor, straight out of the box. There's nothing special. But I have added 5 tests to it. We're going to build it, make sure it's built. We're going to sign it, make sure it's signed. We're going to inspect it, make sure it has the HTTP server and the name Dirtman, which is the name I gave it. And then this is where we actually get, this is all kind of blah. This is where we get kind of fun. We're actually going to call it with wash call. And that's kind of the code I have pulled up here. And what we'll see is right now, up to this point, we're actually signing the module. Inside call, because we have not, I hate that that function is there. Since we have not made official the start from file functionality here on line 13, I just called an audible and we're just going to pull in the actual echo actor. Eventually this start from file that Patrick gave us will replace this. So anyway, so we're going to start the provider. We're going to then call it with this call right here, get echo body derp. And then
Hey,
we're
Jordan.
actually going, yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you enhance, please? I'm going to shout enhance at the screen till it gets bigger.
Oh, that's minus. Where's plus on this keyboard? Plus, plus. There we go. Plus. All right. Is that better?
Hit it 2 more times, I think, and then it'll be good enough for everyone, even with glasses, to see it. So
Better?
Yes, there we go.
All right, cool. Since you're streaming, I'm trying not to scroll because I'm pretty sure there's secrets hard-coded in here. But more or less, yes, as I was saying, right here where we would pick up the module swasm and start it with the file. As soon as that lands, I will switch these out. But I'm pulling the actor. We're starting it. We're going to call it with essentially a get echo, no query string, no headers, derp. And then we're going to check to make sure the body comes back with the byte value of derp with echo get and then call response. So we run it. Look, it was cached. Ta-da. So what's really cool is what I've done essentially is a call test on the actor, which allows me to do some sort of sanity checking of that it's actually functioning. And as a bonus, down a little further, we actually tested starting and stopping it inside Cosmonic using appropriate wash context. So not only do we test the functionality, we're actually testing to make sure it deploys and stops appropriately. So the only reason I pursued this is there were talks of the challenges of testing actors, and while unit tests are a little hard right now because we can't mock wasmCloud yet, I know Rust, I'm talking about Go specifically. I decided to take it from a different angle and test, integration and kind of end to end. And the next iteration here would be something along the lines of start the actor, start the provider, link it, and then the full end-to-end test would be curl through the provider and whatnot. And I was going to get there, but I ran out of time. So, yeah. Are there any questions? Oh, Liam says enhance. It's on a different screen. I can't see the chat. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jordan. Okay, to add more to the testing, mine actually has to do with testing too. Jordan and I are going to go rock'em sock'em robots in the ring together. Just kidding. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. And yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Liam. Sorry, I have a lot more buttons on my bottom since I'm a co-host. Oh no. Give me 10 seconds. I had the issue
have the
with...
ability to present.
No, it's not
Not on
that.
me. That's all I'm saying.
I forgot I didn't have the screen recording thing on for Zoom in my Mac settings. So give me 10 seconds. Hopefully I don't have to rejoin.
Well, I'd love to see some of the efforts around
it.
testing as people have gotten further along in scaling their wasmCloud deployments. I think this is a very natural topic to sort of come up.
Okay. Welcome to Mr. Blobby Tables. Mr. Blobby Tables is a new actor that we created in our examples repo, but as far as I know, it is the first quote unquote real one. We also just added a cool signing one that's also a real application. So this is a real actor that acts as a file server that basically exposes a basic HTTP endpoint that can take a file and then store it in anything that implements the blob store contract. We're going to come up with some cool demos for this soon. We submitted a wasmCloud talk around this too. I think it was Wasm Summit for this one. That will have some pretty cool demos, but I might also show them off before we get to that conference. So Little Blobby Tables is available at Blobby. So you have wasmCloud, Azure CR, Blobby. The code for this, I'm going to go ahead and put it in chat, and then I'll Bailey spread it out through the various channels. So if you want to follow this, it's all in here. But I wanted to do this completely from scratch to show like how it works, number one, and then also some testing things around it. So sorry, this is going to be a little bit longer demo than I generally like to do. But I'm going to go ahead and just actually run through the example here with, I'm just going to say wash up. I'm going to do this straight from scratch so that I can show people like exactly how easy this is to just start off with. So I went ahead and started this up, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the washboard so people can see me doing this. But you can start this up pretty easily with this command right here. So you can wash control start actor. And so I'm going to just do this right over here. It'll take a second to download, and then it'll be fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and link them with what will be the blob store file server and the HTTP server. So that was the blob store contract I just added as a link, and the HTTP server that I just started. And then I'm going to go ahead and start up the two different providers I need. So this is blob store FS. This means it's going to treat my file system at a specific path I gave it as like a blob store. This could be S3 as well. We're working on polishing up some stuff with it. We were doing some testing and found some bugs we wanted to fix. But that's the blob store FS, and then ye old HTTP server, which we all should know pretty well at this point if you've been in the wasmCloud community. So I just started that too. And so if we look here, we have everything's spun up. We have the HTTP server. It's all linked to Blobby. Everything's ready to go. And so I can actually follow this example right here and say, okay, I'm going to create a file. So inside of this, I just created this file, just a simple thing, and I'm going to go ahead and send it up to my server. Okay, you'll see they got okay, and we can actually see inside of and what's this actor's ID? I always forget. Here we go. So we can see that it was actually uploaded through to like the path I specified on my file system, just so you know that it's actually working. So then I'm able to do that, and then I can take this and I can say, hey, let me just see if I can get my file back from the server. And bam, there we go. We got hello there. I can also update it and do the same thing by saying like, hey, let's just add some additional text. And then I'm going to do the same thing and upload it again. And so now if I go and get the file back, you'll see that it actually updated on disk, and I'm pulling it back and forth. I can also delete it, which is pretty straightforward. Just use the delete verb. And then if I try to get it again, it'll tell me, hey, I didn't find it. So super straightforward, but you can actually use this as a real file server. You could, as an HTTP based file server. So it is a real fully there's no like unwrapping or panicking or any sort of things going on in the code. It's actually fully error handled and everything inside of it. So hopefully this can serve as a good example for people who want to build like a fully featured application from the get-go. So you can see there's a lot more code than our normal examples. There's 254 lines, but right there, just going to point it out again. This is why we love wasmCloud. That's 254 lines of code total to do a full file server with error handling and all the bells and whistles. So,
well, I think, Taylor, I'm sorry to jump in. This is an incredible demo that you just sort of like sandbag the lead, that you can easily move across any compatible blob store. So that's S3 or like the Google blob store. It can operate in S3 mode, Mimeo, on disk file. So you can easily just
anything you create a capability provider for.
That's exactly
the
right.
one that I'm planning on doing for this is actually using it with Vault to store encrypted files. So like there's so many different things you can do here that are really cool. But the other thing that I added is I wanted to kind of do a test bed for integration testing actors. Unit testing actors is a little bit more difficult. If Jordan manages to create a mocked out lattice, that'll make it a little bit easier. But what I wanted to do was create something that would serve as a scaffold for how we can start adding this into Wash. And so what I'm about to show you is very janky, but it works. And you could copy it and use the same thing. And it's going to kind of serve as a template for adding this into Wash and being able to test any sort of actor. And so this is the kind of thing where I'll work with Jordan and we'll figure out, because Dagger's a product, we don't want to make everyone have to use Dagger, though that's a great option for people to use. This one is one that works just inside of like GitHub Actions or anything that can run a unit test or any testing pipeline. So just what this looks like is a really gnarly thing that sets up all like it builds your actor for you. It makes sure that the links and everything are set up. But then it actually, outside of that kind of gross part, the actually doing the test is not too difficult. We have a thing that'll give you like you just do a client and you can call the different URLs and everything that it's trying to do, just like you would write any test in Rust or any other language. So ideally, this is going to be I'm debating whether or not we want to make kind of like a super lightweight like IDL that says you can do this call, or if it just passes in a script that you can do. I'm still working through that, but something will allow you to call it. So what this actually looks like is I can go into testing, and let me go ahead and kill Wash real quick. And so I'll go ahead and run this, and I can do cargo test. This test is limited to be one thread at a time, just because I didn't want to have to figure out starting up multiple washes simultaneously. But you can go ahead and run this, and you'll see that it compiles the actor and makes sure it's all ready to go. It starts wasmCloud for me in the background, and then it goes ahead and starts all the different providers, and then it'll run the tests. And so as soon as this first test passed, you'll see I'm not entirely lying, and it should be there in just a second.
The best part of this demo is the sweet emojis, Taylor.
Oh, look, I failed. Oh, because something I didn't clean up the last wasmCloud host. Yeah. So this can happen sometimes when I was testing with another wasmCloud host. So anyway, this runs these tests and actually makes sure that like it goes through each of the things. It can upload a file, it can delete it. It's trying to do all the different things. And also shout out to someone from YouTube who just said they had used little blobby tables yesterday without any hiccups. So that's great to hear. So anyway, like I said, this is janky, totally is, but I think it's a good place to start from so that we can add this to Wash. And I really want to show everyone in the community what we're trying to do, because this has been kind of a thorn in our side for a while. We're like, how do we test these things? Because it's a little bit hard inside the WASM space to actually run a unit test. And then there's like the lattice and different things. So like, how could we test this? And this is just one way we wanted to try to do it. So I'm guessing our first draft will be something like anything that uses an HTTP server or like the messaging contract we'll be able to do. But then what I want to do is we want to improve things like wash call down the line so that we can just dynamically pull the contract, know what the data should look like, and just be able to execute a call that way rather than having to like set up a whole bunch of other things. So we're trying to just make this easier. So anyway, that's what we have. Mostly terminal demo, nothing super exciting and flashy, but I think something that shows a pretty good step forward. And we're going to try to be doing more examples that are very concrete, real world things you can actually use, so that you have better things to copy paste from when you start and are learning wasmCloud.
Okay,
any questions?
I want to pull a Liam here. I'm just going to say what you just said, but again, in high level terms, I can take the actor that you created, little blobby tables, and it can be my basically CRUD actor, my CRUD app for dealing with any kind of blob. So I can have a thing that's doing a file server, what you demoed. I can have it connected to S3. I can have it connected to Vault, just about anything without ever changing that actor and changing any of its code. So when I do that, and it's something really that I could add to my stack. Like this is like a thing that I can just pick up and plug in, and then I can have a different actor call this actor, call little blobby tables, and it will. I don't have to write any of that code for myself, and I don't have to deal with reconnecting any of that. Whatever it's configured for me for my infrastructure, it just goes. Honestly, this was something that kind of like blew my mind. And then you were just like, oh, Cherry, I also just made a really simple way to add integration tests for all of these things. So thank you so much, Taylor. I loved your work.
Yeah, look, I think the reason why it's very strategic, and it's not just like being the dumbest person in the room, but I think it's helpful to restate some of the really salient points in these presentations, so that we drive home, one, how important they are, and two, so that different people have heard the message from different perspectives. That is why open source is always the world's best knife fight, because you're competing on two things. You're competing on value, and you're competing on experience. And we need lots of diverse people to help understand this and help explain it, help to bring others along. So Brooks is our usual host, and he does such a wonderful job sort of thinking through, like, what question might someone like Liam want to ask now, and just sort of play that color commentary on the call. But thank you so much for taking the time to reemphasize that along the way. And Taylor, I love this example. It's phenomenal. I can't wait to play with this.
Yeah. So anyone can try this out and use it. Like I said, it is a actual real service you can use. So please, if you find anything there's issues with it, file a bug, open a PR. Like I said, I'm going to do some crazy things with this. My next stream thing that I'm doing it for a talk, but I want it to be out there as a really cool example, is making this be an encrypted file server by storing files in Vault. And so having a blob store, wasmCloud blob store contract implementation for Vault. And then we've also been talking about, we need to finally, this has just been different maintainers chatting, but we're hoping to be able to sign providers with different capabilities so that they can implement different capabilities simultaneously. And that would make this even cooler, because what I could do is basically build a middleware processing layer that could go in between. So I could connect Blobby to something that implemented the blob store contract and, for example, implemented messaging. So it could take a blob, do something with it, and send the blob across a message thing to another actor down a pipeline. There's some really cool things that I'm hoping to do here in the future. And then it looks like Oren has a question before I go. So Oren, do you want to go ahead and ask that?
Sure. Wow. You noticed that? I feel like before I pressed enter. So will wash test involve a little bit of a pre-set up testing framework-y thing that the developer would interact with, as opposed to kind of hand rolling things mostly? So there'll be I don't know, some kind of more of a library experience with writing an integration test?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. What I'm trying to do with anything we do with wash test is try to make it language agnostic, because that's what WASM is. And so ideally, we take an actor and you say, here's my actor WASM, and we can tie this in with wash build. So anything we support with wash build, we could say, build my actor for me, and then take that actor that was built, or, hey, here's a WebAssembly file, please test it. And it's going to do a lot of that frameworky stuff. So it's going right here, because we don't have the start from file, I had to very janky start up a Docker thing with the registry so I could push it and have it local. But once that's changed into you can start from a local file system, that'll be removed. But then I do wash build, and then I go ahead and say Docker push, and then I say wash reg push to that, or sorry, wash reg push to that, and then wash up. And so I do all those things, and all that will be started up. And ideally, that's why I was thinking, I'm still going to be brainstorming. And as soon as I start to coalesce my ideas, I'm going to open it up as an issue for people to kind of give me their ideas on too, of how we can do the do we need a small IDL that says oh, here's my script, or run these testing things for me or whatever. then you can like exercise that actor with whatever tests you write for it. But I want to try to make it as language agnostic as possible. So even if this is like becomes like a simple wrapper that we provide to most languages that knows how to like pull down wash, call wash test, or wash scaffold or whatever. But it's not fully frameworked out yet. That is the goal though, is to keep it very like as easy for you to just focus on the tests and not any of the setup stuff that you have to do.
Okay. And I guess a follow-up, is it the case that WADM fits for like a configuration that you would want to have running for a test, or is that not the right layer for that?
I think for E2E tests, WADM is definitely involved, because you say, here's my full like application, here's all the providers I need, here's the links I'm setting, here's the application I'm deploying. So when we get like WADM to a full like actual production state, that will definitely be a good tool to have for E2E. For this kind of testing, it's more about testing the actor in isolation, because it doesn't really matter. In this case, it just shows like blobstorefs and HTTP client. It doesn't really matter I just need to get data to the actor and make sure that it does the right calls and then gets data back out. And so that's what this is going to be hopefully focused on, is testing the actor itself, not necessarily the components around it. And then you can do E2E tests for like, like in our company, we use, like the blobstore S3 provider. So that is the kind of like thing that you would test more of an E2E. Like this is the type of stuff we're using in our system.
Okay, thank you.
Jordan had a question in chat, but CJ had his hand raised. So CJ, do you want to go ahead and ask yours, and then I'll jump over to Jordan's?
Sure. Can you hear me? Making sure my microphone is okay. So I have a question concerning your comment about implementing multiple capabilities on the same providers. And I don't want to sort of, put words in your mouth, so I won't make a specific question, but what do you think the advantage is of doing like implementing multiple capabilities on one provider versus just spinning up two providers with multiple capabilities and creating two separate links?
There is an argument to be made, like for example, when you have like something that could implement a KV store and messaging, or you're like so Redis, actually most key value stores have something where you can watch a key. Right. And so instead of having to spin up like multiple providers to handle one that does messaging and one that does like just the key value stuff, you could have one that does both, like has both of those contracts available. And the other thing is exactly what I described, where you could have something acting as a like processing layer. So like think about things like SIMD or other like platform specific instruction type stuff. Or let's say you're exposing a CUDA or something like that from like, that's a capability. But you could also be wanting to have that, like that could be a processing layer. So you could have the implement blob store, but then instead of having to like do an HTTP client call, you could just have it be like messaging and have something listening on the other end. So that way, like you can just send it off using all contracts rather than having to like manually call like an HTTP address that's exposed on something further down the pipeline.
I get you. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, there's more. Like I said, that's a very new idea. We've just been kind of like tossing it around in random conversations. It isn't like anything official, but it's something we'd love to see. So that's just there.
I guess in my sort of basic conception, it's like the sort of philosophy is to sort of break down and modularize things as much as possible here. So it's interesting that there's these use cases to where you sort of want to make something bigger and not smaller. So.
Yeah, it's just more about saving. Like there's times when a system can be used to implement multiple contracts, and it's more saving that rather than like, because you're spinning up, you have to spin up basically a provider for every single one of those contracts when you could have it be one. So that's kind of part of the other, like I said, part of the other reasoning. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Were you done, CJ? I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh no, I'm done. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Jordan had a question for those who are in live streams. He said, so what's the advantage to this approach over the Dagger approach? Seems to be two approaches to the same end. That's a great thing. When I saw what you were demoing, Jordan, I was laughing because it is. Here's my initial gut thing. This is not any judgment call. This is why we're supposed to be discussing this stuff as a community. Is my initial reaction is Dagger requires the use of a specific product and API. And it requires we could reuse some of the ideas from it, but it is requiring you write these tests and go, you're reliant on their SDK for testing. So it's adding yet another SDK that's required for doing stuff in wasmCloud. And I want to make less of that, not more of that. And so I'm more inclined to do something that's built into Wash. And then from there, like being able to like add in things we need to. That doesn't mean we don't copy ideas or take some inspiration from it, but like that's what I lean towards with it. And why I did it the way I did was because I was like, okay, I can run this in GitHub Actions. This is something that I can at least use as a starting point for testing other types of actors as well. And then that was kind of my reasoning behind it. So that I'm not like married to that idea, but that's my initial thinking, is that just avoiding the whole, like Justin said, yet another tool, and trying to keep this like not latched onto a specific product or thing, and keeping it focused on wasmCloud and what it needs. And don't know if Jordan has any comments to that, but like that was just my reasoning.
Oh no, that makes sense.
Yeah, like I said, like I don't think there's a negative thing, because if people are using Dagger, that seems like a really nice way to do it. And I would say if you're doing that, go right ahead with it. I just also think we should work on one that works for any type of CI/CD pipeline, which would be like a wash test kind of thing.
Hey, Taylor.
Yeah.
I see another question here. We're wondering if you're going to hack on this on live stream like you did for the Wash Lib refactor stuff.
I'm going, as soon as we I'm not going to hack on this one as much, but there was another one that I can't remember if I demoed in this call or not. I did start it in that stream I did, or no, sorry, I didn't start in that stream, but there's an actor that I created called a resizer, and I think I demoed it in the community call, where it resizes images for you. And that's all like using a wasmCloud actor. It's pretty cool. And so what I'm going to do is, as soon as we polish up some of the bugs we found in BlobStore S3, I wanted to do a stream adding, like uploading those processed image files to a BlobStore for me. And so I'm going to do that on a stream next to kind of show this. So it's not going to be blobby per se, because blobby is pretty much like feature complete right now. There could be other like little things we add on, like little features here and there, but it's not meant to be super complex. It's just meant to be a super basic, plug it in where you need it actor. So yeah, I will want to. And Oren, those live streams are announced. A lot of them we do through Cosmonic, because that's where a lot of us are in place. So like we're doing it like for fun over there. We do some wasmCloud streams too. So you can follow us on Twitter, and we also talk about them, especially if they're wasmCloud specific and not Cosmonic specific. We generally will talk about them in the Slack channels too, just so people know, because we don't do just Cosmonic stuff there. We actually do quite a bit of just plain wasmCloud. So that's where those are announced. So yeah, we'll try to get that on the schedule, just trying to fix some bugs with the BlobStore S3 stuff, so that I can actually upload it to an S3 compatible store, because I'm looking to upload it to DigitalOcean. It's purely for my own, I do photography on the side, so that's where that comes from. And so it's purely self-motivated, but it's a really cool demonstration of what you can do. Hey, any more questions? We had a lot of good questions, so I don't want to cut anybody off if there's more before we move on to the next agenda item. Okay. Thanks everyone for that. Go ahead and move on to the next agenda item here. We just want to give a quick update on the wasmCloud host v0.60. So we are working on that actively right now. To help with some of the issues that you could see as you were running wasmCloud at scale with how claims were stored, we made some changes that swapped out how those claims are being stored inside of Nats. And so we're working through some of the bugs that have come out of that. And there were just some we thought we had covered most of the things that were going on, but when we actually tried exercising it pretty strongly. So like one of the things we do as at people at Cosmonic, we actually stress test it inside of Cosmonic too, because we pretty much use all of wasmCloud's capabilities. And when we did that, we discovered some bugs that were like, oh yeah, that would break somebody who's going to be running wasmCloud on their own. And so we're trying to fix some of those right now to get them all working. Because there were because of the breaking change, there was some breaking change inside of like how certain data structures were sent. We've had to go back and make sure we've covered all of that across the whole stack. So we're working on it. There's been some learnings there about how we're catching all those in the different places it has to be updated, but that's why it hasn't been fully released yet. We're really close. I've been working on testing some of those last things myself, actually. So that's just an update, just so you all know what's going on with it. We hope to get it out as soon as we can. And that has a bunch of nice goodies in it, as well as, like I said, a lot more durable way of handling your claims that like store all your link definitions and whatnot.
And speed.
And speed, yes. There's some speed. Okay. Next up, we just have some reminders about a couple different events coming up. So first off, we have the CNCF Cloud Native WASM Day CFP that's coming up. I believe that's February 5th, right, Bailey? For that one, let me double check. I only have it
I think
linked.
February 12th. If you want to share a screen, Taylor, they should all be hyperlinked for you.
Yeah, no, I have them. There's no need to share this. We'll link it. Yeah, it is now, February 12th. I thought it was February 5th earlier, but it's changed a little bit. So, so there is the CFP for Cloud Native WASM Day. We're looking to have everything there. This is going to probably be the biggest Cloud Native WASM Day we've had in forever. So it's going to be really, really cool to see what's going on there. So if you have anything WebAssembly related, or you have friends that do things WebAssembly related, and that's not just server side, that's everything from the browser to the server. So please let people know about this and submit, because there's always some really cool talks. So we want to have an even bigger pool of companies and people who are working on this stuff available to pull from. So just let everybody know and let them submit, and we'd love to see that. Just as a couple other reminders for events, we have wasm.io coming up in Barcelona on March 23rd and 24th. I know from the community, at least me and Bailey are going to be there. If anyone else is going to be there, please let us know. We'd love to meet up with you. If there's enough people from the wasmCloud community there, or people using wasmCloud, I'd love to get together for a dinner and chat and see what you're doing and just kind of catch up. We also have, like I said, there's Cloud Native WASM Day itself is April 18th. It's right before the actual KubeCon. And then there is also WASM Summit coming up in London. The date is not fully set on that one. It is mid 2023. So they're thinking probably June-ish timeframe. So they're hopefully going to nail down those dates soon. That is both virtual and in person. So if that interests you, June or July. They set a couple different dates on the CFP. Thanks, Liam. And so those are just a couple of the big WASM related events that are coming up, and we'd love to see people at them if you're in those areas. We also might have a few others coming up. There's the other one I'd also like to notice if you're in Southern California or nearby areas. Me and Brooks are going to be there talking purely wasmCloud stuff at both the Kubernetes Community Day and the Cloud Native track of Scale. So we'll be in Pasadena. If any of you are in that area and would like to meet up or come to those talks, you can go ahead and check out the Scale website as well. So I think that's it for all of the events. Was there any other events that we should, that anyone else knows about that we should talk about here?
That was a good roundup, Taylor.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
We're in the early planning stages of a Cloud Native CNCF dedicated WebAssembly only event. But that is still early exploration and planning. We have a meeting about that next week, though. But we'll get everybody in the loop as soon as we have more details about it.
Okay. I think with that, are there any other things from the community that people want to talk about before we go ahead and finish up the call today?
I see one question about how awesome it would be to learn how we do that testing within Cosmonic. And my immediate thought there was, I wish it was more awesome than it is, but do you want to elaborate on that, Taylor?
Yeah, so we actually start that running basically in our development environment. And then actually exercise all the different functionalities. So we have users log in, because if you're unfamiliar with Cosmonic, we host managed versions of a lattice. They're called constellations. And yeah, it's basically A/B testing is kind of what it boils down to. But we test out those options, and we make sure that you're able to create new hosts inside of your constellation and do everything that you're supposed to be able to do. And then because it's in a big environment and a multi-tenant environment, we pretty much hit all the different kind of edge cases you could expect. from there. And so that's the kind of testing we do. So it's not, and also, it is resource constrained because we're limiting people to how many things they can run because it's a free tier right now. And so that's the kind of thing that really helps us stress kind of the things you wouldn't normally think of doing. So that's the kind of testing we do. Yeah. And it's not as impressive as you'd think. So when it's more impressive, we might do a talk about it and or show it here just to show other people who are running wasmCloud at scale, like how we're testing it out. But right now, it's really not that impressive, to be honest. Okay. Any other questions or discussion items? I have never heard of drill or goose, Maxim. So the question was, are you using drill or goose for load testings? And I have used neither of those. We'll generally load test with some things like hay. Yep, hay is our big one. Just really like hit some endpoints and make sure it can handle it. Obviously, we'll keep doing more and more things as we continue to grow the platform there, and those learnings almost always get directly passed back into the wasmCloud community. Okay. Well, I think we can end early. So we'll go ahead and stop the live stream here in just a second. But thank you everyone for attending. We'll be here next week, same time, same place. And feel free to join through any of the streaming options we put out there or here on the Zoom call. And we're really grateful you're all here and attending and giving us your feedback. It's been great to talk with all of you. So have a great day and we'll see you all next week.